Hi everybody, this is going to be the tutorial that's going to show you how to make this cluster granny square, and I'm also going to show you how to attach them. And what you'll need to do this square is worsted weight yarn, which is 4 ply for the US, 10 ply for Australia, and I recommend getting 2 different colors so that you can put a strip down the center. I have all the patterns that you're going to need, all the information for how many squares that you're going to need in order to make twin size to king size. So you can go to my site and find out how many squares that you need to create to be able to make each size. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to be showing you how to make the granny square itself and how to sew them together. So you're also going to need a 5mm hook or a size H hook for the US. You're going to need a tapestry needle to hide your tails and a pair of scissors. Okay, so to begin your granny square, your cluster granny square, you're going to chain 5 and then slip stitch in this beginning chain to create a ring. Just slip stitch. Then for round 1, you're going to chain 2. And then now working in this ring, you want to do a double crochet. And I recommend working over your tail, to crochet over your tail. The chain 2 at the beginning will count as a double crochet, so this essentially counts as 2 double crochets. Now you want to chain 2, and then you want to do 2 double crochets worked in the ring. 1, 2, and then chain 2 again, and then do another 2 double crochets worked in this ring. We're trying to make 4 sections. So chain 2, we've got 1, 2, 3 sections, so we need 1 more section here. So 2 double crochets worked in the center ring. So if you lay it down here, you can see you have 1, 2, 3 sections, and you're going to be creating your 4th one when you close this off. And as you can see, we have the chain 2 double crochet as our first section. Then we have 2 double crochets, 2 double crochets, 2 double crochets. So you need 4 of those to create the very first beginning of it. So usually between we did a chain 2, but for this very last one, we're only going to chain 1. And slip stitch in the top of the beginning chain 2. And by doing this slip stitch in the beginning chain 2, you're creating that second chain for that space there. And that ends round 1. Okay, for round 2, right where you slip stitched into the row 1, you'll chain 2, and then going right back into that chain 2 space, you're going to do an incomplete double crochet, which means that you're only going to pull through 2. And instead of completing it by yarning over and pulling through the last loop, you're going to leave the remaining loop on your hook. Now you want to go into this very next stitch, this double crochet here, and you're going to put 2 incomplete double crochets in that same stitch. So we're going to do our first one by only pulling through 2. Yarn over, go back into that same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, only pull through 2. Now you have your chain 2 and the incomplete double crochet worked in the first chain 2, and then in the double crochet you have 2 incomplete double crochets. 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops and chain 1 to end the cluster. Now you've come up to your corner. Now all the corners are going to be worked the same way in this pattern. So you're going to be yarning over and you're going to put 3 incomplete double crochets in this big space. So insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, only pull through 2, then yarn over, go into that same space, pull up a loop, yarn over, only pull through 2. Again, one more time, yarn over, go into that corner space there, pull up a loop, yarn over, only pull through 2, 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops, and because you're in a corner space here, you're going to chain 2 after that set. Then going back into the same big space here, you're going to do exactly what you just did. You're going to do 3 incomplete double crochets. So yarn over, go back in that big space, pull up a loop, pull through only 2. Yarn over, go into the big space, pull up a loop, only pull through 2. 3 loops on your hook. One more time, yarn over, go into that corner space, pick up a loop, pull through only 2. 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops and chain 1. And you can see that that's what our corner looks like. Now you're back here where your 2 double crochets are, and after a corner you always need to be careful because this first stitch that you need to go into tends to hide under the corner. So you want to just pull that stitch out so you can see it. You're going to be working in these 2 stitches of our double crochet, and you're going to be putting 2 incomplete double crochets in this first stitch. So go into that first stitch. There's 1. Only remember, only pull through 2. Now you have 3 loops on your hook. You have your 2 incomplete double crochets here. Now you want to move over to the next stitch. So yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, only pull through 2. Then do that same stitch again. You have 5 loops on your hook. You want to yarn over, pull through all 5 loops and chain 1. And now again it brings us up to this corner. And this in row 2 here, you're only going to have 1 cluster before this cluster here is where we started. You're only going to have 1 cluster between each corner piece. So we've done our single cluster here, our standalone cluster. Now we've reached our corner again. Okay, so for our corner, we're going to do just like we did for our previous corner. We're going to start by putting 3 incomplete double crochets worked into that big corner space, giving us 4 loops on our hook. Pull through all 4, and remember this first set of 3 clusters in the corner, you will do a chain 2 after, and then you'll do your next set of those 3 incomplete double crochets that will create the cluster on this side. It's 1, 2, 3. Now we have 3 incomplete clusters on this side in the same space. Pull through all 4 loops and chain 1. And now we're back to our middle section. In this row we only have 1. Remember, pull those stitches over from the corner so you can find that first stitch, and you want to put 2 incomplete double crochets in that first stitch, and then 2 incomplete double crochets in the second. Should have 5 loops on your hook. Pull through all 5 loops, chain 1. Then again you have reached the corner again, so go ahead and do your 3 incomplete double crochets. Pull through all 4 loops, chain 2. Then do your other 3 incomplete double crochets, pull through all 4 loops, chain 1, and then you'll be again right here on this middle section. And then I will show you after you've completed both of your corners. You have 2 corners. You have a corner, a middle, and a corner. So when you finish this corner here, I'll show you how to end this row. Okay, I'm just finishing my last cluster in this corner. Now at the end of a row, and it just so happens to fall in a corner this time, but after your very last stitch of the row where you would usually chain 1, you don't need to chain 1 when you're at the very end of your row. You just find that very first stitch, which is beginning chain 2, and you'll just slip stitch into that very first stitch. And by slip stitching you'll create that chain 1 that's needed between those 2 stitches. Now for row 3, you're going to, if you look at your piece here, you can see now that where last time we had only 1 here in the center, and then we had our corners. When we created our corners, we created 2 more on this row. So now we have 3 clusters, single clusters, before we get to our corners, unlike last time where we only had 1 cluster before we reached the corner. So this row we're going to have 3 individual clusters, and then we'll have our corners, but we'll do them the same way. This one we're kind of starting in the middle of the cluster, so we're going to be starting with our middle cluster and not our very first cluster of the row. So you're going to start by chaining 2, and in that same stitch that you slip stitched into to close the row, you want to put an incomplete double crochet there. Then you're going to start working in your very next stitch, because each cluster has 2 stitches to it. So you're going to be working in your second stitch here, and you'll do your 2 incomplete double crochets there, leaving 4 loops on your hook. Pull through all 4 loops and chain 1. Now let me get a little closer and I'll show you the 2 stitches that I mean. Each cluster will have kind of a big stitch here and then a small stitch. This small stitch here is created when you chain 1. So if you don't want this stitch to be too tight, don't chain 1 too tightly. As you can see here, every single cluster has 2 stitches. So you'll be putting 2 incomplete double crochets here, 2 incomplete double crochets here, then pulling through all 5 loops. So we did, and chaining 1. So we did our first cluster. Now we're going to be working in our second cluster here. We're going to be starting in this one and then going to the second. Let me back up just a little bit here. Okay, so I'm going to go into this next stitch, do my first 2, and I think I chained 1 a little too tightly here. Struggle a little bit. Okay, I got my 5 loops on my hook, pull through all 5 loops, chain 1, and now here I just chained 1 too tight again. Chain 1, and then now it brings us to the corner where we're going to work our corner exactly the same way. I'm going to put 3 incomplete double crochets here. They're like doing a double crochet decrease, but since we're doing it all in one stitch, it's hard to call it a decrease. So you have 3 incomplete double crochets, you have 4 loops on your hook, pull through all 4 loops and chain 2. Now you're doing the other part of your cluster in the corner here. So 3 incomplete double crochets, pull through all 4 loops and chain 1. Now remember, move that corner so you can see this first stitch. Put 2 incomplete double crochets in the first part of the stitch and then 2 in this second part. Then pull through all 5 loops and chain 1. Now remember we have 3 standalone clusters this row. So we'll have to do this 3 times, and I'm chaining 1 a little bit too tightly. I have to get back in the groove of doing this again. Then chain 1. Try to be a little mindful of when I do my chain 1s. Okay, I did 2 there. Then you go to the next one again with my chain 1 too tight. There we go. Okay, and then chain 1, and now we have our 3 worked into our 3. And but we're still increasing every row because every time you make a corner you're adding a cluster on this side and on this side of the row. So at the end on this row we're actually going to have 5 total clusters, but 3 of them will be individual and then 1 will be added on each side. So we've come onto the corner again, and we're going to do our corner just like we did before. Chain 2. We'll do our 3 incomplete here. Pull through, chain 1, and then move to the side. And you can start your clusters on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and let you continue round 3 and get all the way up to the end of your row, and I'll show you how to end this row. Okay, I'm again on my corner here where I was last time, pulling through all 4 loops, but this time you do want to chain 1 because you still have 1 more, and it gets a little difficult to make sure that you don't forget this one here. So you're always going to need to make sure now after you finish your corner, and it may move I think to more towards the middle, I'm not sure, but after your last corner just always make sure that you're not leaving 1 behind because it can be hard to see. So move your stitches over as usual to get this very first stitch, and then finish your cluster in the second stitch here. Pull through all 4 loops, no need to chain 1. Find that very first stitch here. Again, there's 2 stitches. Let me get a little closer, it's hard to see here. So there's 2 stitches. You can see that down, if you look to the side, there's the chain. Chain 1, this is the chain 2. So this is the top of your stitch, and there's the second part of your stitch. So this first one, the first one you'd want to start making your 2 incomplete clusters in, is the one that you're going to use to end your row here. So find that stitch and slip stitch, and it will also create the chain that you need in between those stitches. And that ends row 3. So for row 4, going to chain 2, and then again go right back into that same stitch and do your incomplete double crochet. Then yarn over, go into your next stitch, and you'll be putting your 2 incomplete double crochets there. 4 loops on your hook, pull through all 4 loops, chain 1, and now you have 2 more single, individual I should say, clusters to work your cluster in before the corner. And then on the side here you can see that you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 individual clusters to do before you reach your corner. So go ahead and work this row just like you did before, and I'll see you here when you reach your last corner. Okay, again, I'm on my last corner here on row 4. And now I have 2 more clusters before I reach the very last stitch of my row where I need to end it. So you have this one and this one. Again, pull the corner over if you need. I have to get better at chaining looser. Pull through all 5, chain 1. And this is your last one of the row. Pull through all 5, and then don't chain 1. Remember, just go right into that last stitch of the row. But this row, I'm going to change colors. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to complete my stitch with my new color. So instead of chaining in my row with this, I'm going to grab up my next color. And since I'm not going to keep this square, I'm not going to cut my yarn, but you can, but leave a tail long enough to be hidden. So to change colors, let me back up a little bit. Oh, my chair is rolled over my yarn. Okay, so to change colors, all I do is just grab up my next color. A little bit of a tail there. I'm going to create a loop just to be put on my hook and pull that through my stitch and then through the stitch, I should say the loop that was on my hook. And then now I'll grab up the new color, and to secure it you want to chain 2 because that's your very first stitch of row 5. So go ahead and chain 2. And then I usually flip mine over and I'll grab my 2 tails. This I usually have cut. And then I'll tie them a couple knots just to secure. And then I'll hide them later with my tapestry needle. So now you have your new color secure. And now that's going to count as your very first stitch. So right where you slip stitched to in the row, again you're going to do an incomplete double crochet, and then now you're ready to go into the next stitch. Do your next 2 incomplete double crochets, then pull through all 4 loops, chain 1, and now you're ready to continue your row as normal. And you'll have 3 individual to do before a corner. So you're going to continue and do that all the way around, and I'll see you on your last corner on this side. Okay, I just got done with the row. I just got done with my last cluster on this side, and I pulled through all 5 loops. Then where you would usually just slip stitch here and pull through, I'm going to do just like I did last time, because I have to switch back my color. So once you pull through all 5 loops, go ahead and cut the color, and then you can do like you did before, or if you did the same way as I did, do like I did before and do this to connect it if you cut it, if you cut it. And if you're like me and you left it attached, then you can just pull it through, get my hook in there, pull it through the last stitch here and through the loop on your hook. And then you can do a little tie, which I think I'm going to do a light tie on this side, because I'm going to be untying them. Okay, so now you've got your original color again. So you'll want to chain 2 and then do an incomplete double crochet here in the very first stitch, and then as part of the same cluster you want to do your next 2 incomplete double crochets, pull through all 4, chain 1, and then now you have 1, 2, 3, 4 more individual clusters on this side before the corner. And for the whole side, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 individual clusters on each side for this row, and then the corners. So you're going to continue with this color for another 2 rows, sorry. No, 3 rows. So this was row 4, this was row 5, so you'll have rows 6, 7. Okay, yeah, I had my pattern incorrect, so it was confusing me. So I corrected it. It's definitely rows 6, 7, and 8. So you're going to do 3 more rows with this color, continuing on the pattern to complete your granny square. Here I went ahead and I didn't do that here, so when I followed my pattern, I'm 1 short, so I'm going to go ahead and add another one to this one as well. So once I got those completely done, my 2 granny squares, I'll come back here and I'll show you how to sew them together. Okay, it's the next day, and I finished up my granny squares. As you can see, they both have 3 rows of the last color after you changed your color here. And if you can see before, I do count this one as a row, as row 1, but I waited until you could have 3 clearly showing rows here. So it's actually, you have 4 rows here, and then the 5th row is the next color, then you have 3 rows. So now that you got your granny squares done, I'm going to show you how to attach them, how I attach them for this Afghan. So this is the front side, and then this is considered the back side. So you want to have, lay out all your squares, find out how you want to put them together, how you want them sewn together, and then when you're ready, you need to make sure that you have, I used ones that were like in front of each other like this, and then just flipped it over where the front sides were facing, because I took this by row by row by row, so I would just take the next 2 up and sew them right after I sewed these 2, and I had a whole line. So once you have your 2 granny squares facing one another, I'm going to go in this first corner. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be going right to left. If you're left-handed, then grab the corner that's appropriate for you in the way that you crochet, because you want to crochet to connect these squares one after another. So go in the direction that you crochet. Okay, so grab the color you want to use, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail so I can sew it in later before creating your slip knot. And then you want to find the corner of each granny square. Let me get a little closer for you. So you're going to put your hook in the first, and then in the second one. Now you're in the corner of both squares. Actually, I want to get it in my crochet position first. Okay, now I'll do this corner through this corner. and then you just want to single crochet. Now I'm going to be using the back loops only. So the back loop of this granny square into the back loop of this granny square, leaving those two inner loops alone. And it's going to make a really nice looking effect on the other side, and it's also going to hide your sewing. But you still want to choose a color that would look good, because it still will show through. So make sure whatever color you're sewing with is the one you don't mind it being seen. But this is still a tighter way of crocheting this. And what I'm doing is just slip stitching. Don't slip stitch too tightly where it'll pull, but just go into each one of those loops, those back loops. So the back loop of this one, and you can use your hook and do like this to grab it if it's hard for you, and then the back one of the other one, and slip stitch. Remember, it's very important not to slip stitch so tightly, but not too loose either, but especially not too tight, because it will pull. Just take your time with this. This is a great project to do while you're watching something or listening to something. I'm sure many of us crocheters are perfect at doing the quick glance up while you're listening to something. There's been a few movies where I had to read the subtitles, but it's hard for me to watch movies like that when I want to crochet, because I can't listen. I can't read and crochet at the same time. So anyway, continue down, slip stitching all the way down, and then when you get to your corner, I'm going to show you how to attach to the next two squares and then start to sew those two together. Okay, I wanted to give you a little tip here. You see how you can see the clusters? Like this is the corner, and you have one big cluster, two big cluster. You can do it the same way from the back. This is your corner, this is your cluster. You can line up the clusters as best as you can. The closer you get to the corner, you want to make sure that it's even, because you're about to connect it to another square. So I want to ask, what is the most recent movie that you have crocheted, listened to, that even sometimes when I use that Afghan or whatever I'm making, but especially with Afghans, I remember the things I was watching when I made it. So even if you see this in the future, I'd still like to see what are the upcoming shows or movies that people are watching. So could you leave a comment down below and let me know the last one you remember? Okay, let me get that other piece. I'm going to show you how to attach these corners. Okay, when you get to corner here on this side, I'm going to do a single crochet again. And then grab up your next two squares that are facing one another, and again go through the corner on this side and through the corner on the other side. And you want to do a single crochet. And then now again start picking up just those back loops and keep slip stitching down, and continue to do this with all of your, this one's a little loose, with all of your squares until you've got them all connected. And then I'll show you how to connect down this side. Okay, so I'm just going to imagine I went ahead and did this whole side. This is the Afghan, so I'm not going to keep it, obviously. You want to hold your, you want to keep your granny squares facing the back way. I don't know if I can do this because it's connected. Let me try. So you're going to attach, again, once you have, all your rows connected and you're ready to, connect it this direction, you again want to connect your corners again on this side, attach it, single crochet in the corner to connect, and then slip stitch in your back loops only to sew this like you were doing before. Okay, I want to go ahead and slip stitch up to that point so I could show you. So I have slip stitched and I made it to one of the places where I've connected, and now you have just this little section here where it's connected. I just put my hook inside there and do a slip stitch. But a single crochet. So it doesn't really matter, just get it on the top, on top of the stitch as much as you can, and then single crochet. and then just continue on to the next side, work slip stitching in your back loops only, and then continue down like that all the way down your Afghan. And I wanted to show you what it's supposed to look like when it's sewed. Here's the two pieces. You can see now that it leaves this little ridge along the side. You can still see the yarn in between, and especially when you pull it, you can see it. So it doesn't matter the color, but it's not going to add a huge effect. So maybe a subtle effect if you wanted to add a color that matches the two colors that you have. But it makes a really nice look. And also these diagonal patterns, when you have them sewn correctly, they make a diamond shape that will go all along the whole Afghan, making a really nice effect. So for the border, you can do whatever kind of border that you want. On this one, let me get it up here real quick. I use this thing every night. It's baby size, but it's a nice little Afghan I can grab. So what I did is just connected it in the corner, just like you would do when you were sewing. Let me just show you with this. So I'm going to go ahead and just start in one of the corners. I'm going to slip stitch, make this really easily. Make this easy. Slip stitch, chain 2, yarn over, go into that corner space and do your 2 incomplete double crochets. Then pull through all 3 loops. That's your first cluster for this corner. Then you'll chain 2, and then you'll do your next 3 incomplete double crochets in this side as well. That's 2. Then I'll pull through all 4 of those loops, chain 1, and then now you can start going in just like you were doing before, using your clusters to do your 2 incomplete. And what I did is I just treated this whole Afghan all the way around as just one huge square. And when you get to the end of your row, just slip stitch back into the top 2, beginning chain 2. So what I did is I just treated this as one huge granny square and did all my corners like I always did, but it gave the whole Afghan just this extra look around the other squares, which I really like. I really liked how this one looks. I keep this on the back of my couch. So that is it, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please don't forget to click like and share this video. It helps me out so much. Also, just out of curiosity, which one of these granny squares do you like better? I just grabbed random colors that I had enough of back there, and I didn't really think about the way they look together. But my husband actually really likes this one, but I like the blue one with the gold in the middle. So I thought I'd ask you, which one do you like better? And if some of you are wondering why I was using this and not my frills hook, it's just that I don't like to use my frills hook when I have to get a lot on my hook all at once, a lot of loops, because then it tends to slide off. So I'd prefer this one. It's got like a stronger hook or something, and it also has more room. It's not pushing as much. So, but I still have it. It's still here. The information is down below the description box if you want to find out how to get one yourself, as always. Also, I have a group on Facebook. It's new. It's called Crochet Zone Public, and it was set up to mainly be a place where designers can share the newest designs that they have out there right now. And I'd really appreciate if you check it out and give some of the designers there some love by sharing the stuff that you like, the patterns that are there. Most of them are free, but not all of them. So you get a good idea of paid or non-paid that's out there. So I hope you check it out and share it with your friends. So that's it, guys. Thank you so very much for watching.